Hello. I'd like to tell a story today. A story about a New Zealand tech company that has managed to be a happy company, and a company that has managed to take business agility to the next level. They have created a company where everyone is empowered to make decisions, where nobody can tell anyone else what to do, and where basically everyone can decide what they work on and who they work with. That company is called Snapper, and Snapper make transport ticketing systems. That basically means that when you take the underground, when you take the tube, that you pay with either a little chip card or you pay with your phone with our NFC, and you just hold the phone or the chip card to a device and it deducts the fare. Snapper have been agile for about 10 years, and I am the consultant who 10 years ago helped them introduce agile. Things are going very well. They are quite small and only 60 people, but punching way above their size. So they power the transport in Dublin, in Riga, and a number of New Zealand and European cities. And things at Snapper were actually going well. They are agile, and they're agile both in IT and technology, and also some of the marketing teams and some of the sales teams have started to work in an agile way. But still, even if you do that, for us, things were starting to fall through the cracks. So we had a problem with autonomous teams being very autonomous, very good at what they're doing, but communication flows weren't always as they were supposed to be. So we had teams duplicating work. We had marketing not being informed about what teams were doing. And we tried stuff like putting a marketing person on a development team, for example. And that was great until the person developed Stockholm Syndrome and completely forgot about their marketing colleagues. So it didn't really help either. So we knew we wanted to look into something that was a bit different. And that was the time when we came across Holacracy. In Holacracy, there's one quote that stood out for me in Holacracy. And that is that cities, when they grow, get 15% more productive, whereas companies, when they grow, decrease in productivity. And it's not that cities don't have central rules. There are laws, there are rules, there are regulations around how many fire stations you need to have and hospitals and so on. It's not complete anarchy. But at the same time, we don't tell people where to open restaurants and exactly what restaurants there are and what furniture to put into their houses. So Snapper basically wanted to be more like a city and less like a corporation. And another thing that struck us about Holacracy was that their belief system was very similar to ours. That we believe that when you treat people like adults, then they will act like responsible adults. And that when you move decision-making to the level where the information is, decisions will be faster and better. So we were highly attracted to Holacracy. So what is it? Who has heard of Holacracy? Who knows what it is? Okay, who has tried it? Okay, me. So basically, it's a system to create a self-organizing organization. And it came from a book that is written by a guy named Brian Robertson, who has codified a number of rules to make this Holacracy system. And it really is an implementation of sociocracy, which is a philosophy and an idea that comes out of the 1960s and 70s. The most famous implementation is Zappos. And there's a lot of stories coming out of Zappos, and some of them are really good, and some of them are really not good. So there's really conflicting information, and I think we can't really say, is it working, is it not working? And also, I was quite skeptical about it both because of those stories and also because there's a ton of rules and really weird words around holacracy. So it also sounded a bit like a cult to us. That's how our CEO put it. But I thought, well, I've been an agile coach for 12 years. And I also do CrossFit. So what's not a cult? But seriously, so we decided, well, we don't know what it is. We don't know whether it's good or bad. But let's try it. Let's just overcome our own biases. Let's give this a chance, try it, and defer judgment. So we all started doing this, and we bought the book, we read it, and went, cool, let's go. And I want to talk you through a number of things that were really important to us. And first of all, I'm not going to go through the entire holacracy rule set, because even though that's not the constitution, but it's the size of this. So I just want to focus on three things that really made a difference to us. And the first one were autonomous circles. Autonomous circles are the basic concept of teams that are being given a purpose, and if they achieve the purpose, they can do that in any way they want. For us agile coaches, that means if a circle decides to do something that's really not agile, and they still achieve their purpose, that's up to them. So it truly is in any way they decide to work. They can structure themselves in any way they like, and they can also use any method they like. The entire company is built around circles. And this is the Snapper General Circle, which is the big company circle. And like each circle, the company circle has a purpose and a number of accountabilities. And if you think that looks very much like a vision and mission statement, you're right. What makes it different is the way it is translated into sub-circles. So this is how Snapper is built up now, where the general circle is split up into a number of sub-circles, say, for example, the international circle, which in turn has a circle that's on the go for mobile customers, which in turn has one circle that's for iOS. And each of those circles are given their purpose by their parent circle. And it looks a bit like this, like those nested Russian dolls, which gives you a focus that gets narrower and narrower. And what that makes possible is that you can give people in those circles absolute freedom to act in the way they want to, just to achieve their purpose. It has helped us a lot because we have quite a flat hierarchy and a good culture. And what that very often happens then is that people find it hard to talk about accountability. They find it hard to talk about, well, who's doing this? But with those clear accountabilities and purpose, we knew, hey, I don't need to worry about this. You got this, or we got this. And already after a couple of weeks, the CEO told me he found it felt a lot lighter for him because he didn't need to worry about things over there. So what you get is ultimately a hierarchy. It is not a flat hierarchy. It's a hierarchy of purpose and not of people. And there's another thing that I want to emphasize about what I said before, that a circle can structure itself in any way it wants to. So if Snapper, or if, say, the international circle decides they want to have different sub-circles, they can just do that. And that's actually quite powerful, because instead of having those restructures and reorganizations and you need to go through HR and it's really complicated and painful, people can just decide that in one meeting, that they want to structure their sub-circle, their circle, in a different way. For us, that meant when we started Holacracy, we created the existing structure. We had a marketing team and a finance team, and we had a tech team, and so on. And then at some point we realized, why are we doing this? We could actually just have teams or circles that are focused towards a customer outcome. So we now have international and sub-circles that all support a customer purpose or a customer segment. And it took no time, it took one decision in one meeting to make that happen. And that was extremely powerful. And we believe it gives us the opportunity to go with, in a changing world with whatever is needed without going through a lot of pain to restructure and reorganize ourselves. Another thing that was really powerful for us were roles. And every role I have ever had, every job I've ever had, looked a bit like this. Those are the things I'm supposed to do. And then there are the things I really do. And Holacracy surfaces this, that we all do things that are within our normal job descriptions and some things are outside. And in Holacracy, every person has more than one role. Those are not job roles. Those are quite granular, specific roles. Everyone at Snapper has between 3 and 5 job roles. And those roles have been really, really helpful in getting people to basically craft their own jobs. We had a solutions architect, for example, and his job was to both help clients design solutions for transport systems, existing clients, but also to make cold calls to sell to new clients. And he realized he actually hated the selling part and he loved the other part. So what he did, he could split this out into a role, and someone else could do the cold sales part, someone else who really likes it and is good at it. And it's not because he couldn't be bothered. It's just something that he realized that he would never be good at and didn't want to do. So instead of doing this, he grabbed a different role, which was coaching new developers. And it's a new skill that he has acquired over time. And he has decided actually that makes a lot more sense for him and he's happier in his job. And roles also made it possible for us to create temporary roles. Like we had a PricewaterhouseCoopers audit and someone needed to coordinate that audit. So we created a role, which was the audit coordinator. Someone grabbed it. Once the audit was over, we could just ditch the role again without making this complicated, without having any reporting line or anything change. The process of defining roles is something of the most boring I have ever done. It's absolutely tedious, and I haven't found a different way of doing this, but it's basically all of us going away and describing what is it we're actually doing. Then getting together in a meeting and explain it to each other so we could define what roles are needed and are we doing the right things. And seriously, if you do that with 12 people, you just want to shoot yourself. It's incredibly boring, but it was so useful because we found out what was needed, and we also found out that many of us did things that we shouldn't be doing without being aware. We had coaches who found out that actually they spent 70% of their time doing hands-on coding. We found a program manager who realized that he was spending most of his time doing first-level support. And just surfacing that was really useful so we could split that out into other roles and other people could grab that. And the last thing are tensions and consent. Tensions are kind of a weird word because it's not very positive. What it means is that it's a gap between what is and what could be. And I found people struggle a bit with using the word tension because, and pointing out tensions because it doesn't sound like they have discovered a great improvement or way of improvement. But once they got used to that and realized that their job, and it's part of the culture, to basically walk around and try to sense tensions, sense things that aren't as they should be, and then making sure that they're being surfaced, baked continuous improvement into our culture. And Holacracy has a method or a process for processing and working with those tensions. It's a couple of meetings. And the most important thing about those meetings is how decisions are being made. And that's decision-making by consent. Consent is different from consensus. Consensus is when we all need to agree. Sometimes we agree, but we keep talking. And other times we can't agree, and we just talk and talk and talk and talk. And 5 minutes before the meeting ends, we just agree on something, but just because we need to get out of the room. Consent is faster. It errs on the side of action. If someone makes a proposal, they ask if there are any objections. And if there are no objections, then we do as proposed. An objection is not something in Holacracy that's like, I don't like it, can't be bothered. An objection is something that moves us away from our purpose, or slows us down, or is not safe to try. But if it's safe to try, there are no valid objections, then we're going to do this thing. And for us, this has been super helpful because people could just keep their eyes out for small improvements and tensions. We've recently had discovered, one of our architects discovered we have way too many Amazon AWS instances running, but we don't know which ones to switch off, we don't know which ones are used. So he came up with a policy proposal. During one meeting, no one had objections, so we could agree to do this, and the thing was solved within less than a week. And before that, it would have taken months and months and months just to find a process for how to do that. And that's a little thing. And none of the things that we decided were huge or earth-shattering. But if you add on all those little things on a daily basis, the improvements are enormous. So 3 years later, the company is still running Holacracy across the entire business. Some teams are better than others, some are newer than others, but overall, things are going really well. Things are not falling through the cracks anymore. And we also know that we can grow and be more like a city and not a big bureaucratic organisation. The learning curve has been pretty tough, but overall, people say they actually wouldn't want to go back to the old ways of working. So going back to me being very sceptical about Holacracy and about the silly words, I still can't say whether Holacracy is good or evil. I don't think it's either. I think fundamentally it will just amplify the culture that you have. If you have a culture that's collaborative, it's going to be really helpful because it gives people the opportunity to collaborate better and to clarify who is doing what, and it's really powerful to achieve results. If you don't have a culture like that, if you have a culture where people struggle for power or strive for power, where people build silos, that's not collaborative, it's going to have a negative effect because you can use this as a weapon. So I do think it's an amplifier of culture and not something that changes or creates culture. And I also think that holacracy, sociocracy are in their infancy. And it feels to me like the early days of Agile and Scrum, when we thought 30-day sprints were amazing. Things have changed and have developed. And like that, I'm pretty sure that holacracy is going to develop too. It will change as we find better ways of working. But I'm convinced that holacracy, agile, business agility, and a huge dose of common sense are going to make a huge difference. The one thing we shouldn't forget, though, is when we introduce Agile, we talk about it's not just about doing Agile, it's about being agile. So in the same sense, I'd like to say it's not just about doing holacracy, it's about being holacratic. Thank you.